Someone wants you to believe that Queen Camilla forced her way into the royal jewellery vault, seized 3 tiaras linked to Catherine without permission, and triggered a confrontation so explosive that Prince William went directly to King Charles. It is a perfect royal scandal. A secret vault. A humiliated future queen. A furious husband. A queen accused of abusing her rank. There is only one problem, and it is a very big one. I could not find reliable evidence that this alleged raid actually happened. No official confirmation. No credible major news investigation establishing the confrontation. No verified record of Camilla taking 3 tiaras for a private family member. But here is where the story becomes genuinely fascinating, because when you place the viral allegation beside the real royal calendar, the actual history of these jewels, and what Catherine publicly wore only weeks later, a completely different picture appears. And honestly, the real story may tell us far more about power inside the monarchy than the fictional one ever could. Before we go any further, subscribe to the Windsor Brief, because today we are doing something royal commentary desperately needs more often. Following the drama, but refusing to sacrifice the truth. And by the end, you will see why one tiara Catherine wore in public may be far more significant than any unverified story about a secret palace raid. Start with the dates. Queen Camilla really did host a reception for Booker Prize finalists on November 12, 2025. The official royal family calendar confirms it. King Charles and Queen Camilla really did travel to South Wales on November 14 to mark the King's birthday. Those engagements are real. That makes the surrounding story feel immediately credible. Real dates, real events, real people. But real calendar entries do not prove a secret jewelry confrontation happened around them. And I found no reliable evidence that Camilla suddenly faced a tiara emergency, demanded Catherine's jewels, or ordered 3 pieces removed from a vault. And this is the first lesson in how powerful royal misinformation works. You take something documented. Then, you build something unverifiable around it. The audience recognizes the real date and unconsciously trusts the invented scene. But now look closer at the jewelry itself, because this is where the cracks widen. The viral story speaks as though Catherine personally owns a private set of royal tiaras that Camilla could simply steal from her shelf. Royal jewelry is not always that simple. Some pieces are privately owned, some have complex family histories, some are associated with the royal collection, some are made available or loaned for use. Royal Collection Trust explicitly says the royal collection is held in trust by the sovereign for successors and the nation, rather than owned by the monarch as an ordinary private individual. That does not answer the ownership of every single jewel, but it destroys the simplistic idea that every famous tiara worn by Catherine automatically belongs to Catherine personally. And suddenly the language matters. Worn by Catherine is not always the same as owned by Catherine. Associated with Catherine is not always the same as legally hers. That distinction may sound technical, but in a royal family built on inheritance, loans, trusts, and historic collections, it changes everything. Now take the 3 pieces named in the viral story. The first problem is almost hiding in plain sight. The transcript calls one of them the Oriental Circle. The historic tiara is generally known as Queen Victoria's Oriental Circlet. And this is not some minor background piece. It dates to Queen Victoria's era and carries an extraordinary history. Contemporary reporting documented Catherine making her public debut in it at the German State Banquet on December 3, 2025. Pause there, because this is where the real timeline becomes more interesting than the alleged scandal. The viral story asks you to imagine Catherine being stripped of access to royal jewels in early November. Then, on December 3rd, the public saw Catherine walk into one of the highest-profile diplomatic occasions of the year, wearing the Oriental Circlet, a historic piece she had never publicly worn before. The official royal family record confirms the German state visit and the Windsor Castle State Banquet, with the Prince and Princess of Wales participating. That does not prove there was never a private disagreement. We should be honest about that. But it does create a serious problem for the dramatic narrative that Catherine was being systematically humiliated and stripped of jewelry access, because the visible public evidence points in the opposite direction. Weeks later, Catherine was not being pushed away from the historic jewelry story. She was stepping deeper into it. And here is where the symbolism becomes difficult to ignore. Catherine is not queen. She is Princess of Wales. She is married to the first person in line to the throne. Yet at that German State Banquet, she appeared in a jewel created in Queen Victoria's era, at an official event hosted by King Charles and Queen Camilla, with William beside her. The careful factual conclusion is not that we know some secret palace motive. We do not. But the reasonable inference is that Catherine's public royal role and her visible access to major historic jewelry was not shrinking. It was expanding. And that is a much bigger story. Because royal jewelry is never just jewelry. Not in public. Not at state occasions. The choice of a historic tiara can connect one generation to another. It can evoke Queen Victoria, the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth II, or Diana. It can place the current wearer inside a visual chain of continuity that stretches across decades or centuries. But we have to be careful here too. A tiara does not automatically prove a secret promotion. It does not prove one royal has defeated another. It does not prove Camilla fears Catherine. Those are interpretations. What we can say is that Catherine's public jewelry choices have become increasingly significant as her position has grown. And the Oriental Circlet debut is concrete evidence of a widening visual connection between the Princess of Wales and some of the monarchy's most historic imagery. Then there is Queen Mary's Lover's Knot tiara. This is where emotion enters the story. The piece became strongly associated with Diana during her years as Princess of Wales and has been repeatedly worn by Catherine at major formal occasions. That connection gives the jewel a public meaning far beyond diamonds and pearls. Every time Catherine wears it, millions of viewers see not only the present Princess of Wales, but the memory of the woman who held that title before her. Contemporary coverage has repeatedly documented Catherine's use of the tiara and its Diana association. And this is precisely why invented private dialogue is unnecessary. You do not need to fabricate Catherine telling William that the tiara represents her journey. The public symbolism already exists. You do not need an imaginary bedroom conversation. The history is powerful enough. You do not need Camilla saying, "I took them because I could." Because the real tension, if you want to call it tension, is structural. Camilla is the current queen. Catherine is the future queen consort if William eventually becomes king. One woman occupies the role now. The other is preparing for a future that everyone can see coming. That alone creates an extraordinary visual dynamic every time both women appear at the same major royal event. But here comes the twist. The evidence does not show a simple winner and loser. At the December 2025 German state visit, King Charles and Queen Camilla were the hosts. William and Catherine had prominent roles in welcoming the German president and his wife, and attended the state banquet. This was not Catherine replacing Camilla. It was the monarchy displaying multiple levels of its present and future structure at once. Current queen, future king, future queen. One room, one institution. And suddenly, the jewelry becomes part of a much larger question. How does a monarchy visually prepare the public for the next generation without diminishing the people currently on the throne? That is a real tension. And unlike a secret vault raid, you can actually see it. You see it when William and Catherine are given central roles during state visits. You see it when Catherine appears in jewels with deep dynastic history. You see it when old royal pieces return to public view on a woman whose future position is already understood. And perhaps most importantly, you see it without anyone needing to shout. That is how monarchy often communicates. Through placement, through precedence, through ceremony, through what is worn, through who stands where, and through which pieces of history are brought back into the light. Now remember how the viral story ends. It gives the audience perfect justice. Charles summons Camilla. He punishes her. The tiaras are returned. Camilla is barred from wearing one. Catherine later walks into a banquet wearing the jewel that started the conflict. It is emotionally satisfying. It is also exactly the kind of ending audiences should be suspicious of when no reliable evidence supports the preceding drama. Real institutions rarely resolve scandals with such cinematic perfection. Real family disputes rarely produce dialogue that sounds written for television. And real palace stories almost never arrive with every private emotion, exact time, secret conversation, and final punishment conveniently available to an anonymous narrator. That does not mean royal conflict never happens. Of course it does. It means extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. And this story does not currently have it. But here is the part I find genuinely more shocking. The fictional story imagines Catherine's power coming from William marching into his father's office to rescue her. The public record suggests something quieter. Catherine's position does not need to be invented. She is already Princess of Wales. She is already married to the heir to the throne. She already represents the crown at major diplomatic events. And in December 2025, she publicly wore Queen Victoria's Oriental circlet at a state banquet in Windsor Castle, a visible moment that connected her to an extraordinary line of royal history. That is not a secret victory. It is a public fact. And perhaps that is why the truth is ultimately more interesting, because the future of the monarchy is not being decided by an imaginary fight over who can grab the most tiaras from a vault. It is being shaped slowly, publicly, through responsibility, through visibility, through state occasions, through access to history, through the gradual movement of William and Catherine closer to the center of the institution they may one day lead. And that brings us to the question the viral story accidentally exposes. Why are people so ready to believe Camilla and Catherine are locked in a secret war? Part of the answer is Diana. Part is the complicated history surrounding Charles and Camilla. Part is the public fascination with Catherine as a future queen. And part is the monarchy's own culture of silence. When an institution explains very little, audiences begin filling the gaps themselves. Sometimes with reasonable speculation, sometimes with fantasy, and sometimes with stories so detailed that fiction begins wearing the clothes of journalism.